Living in a tiny house is something a lot of people they dream about. The charm, the simplicity, the sense of freedom. It all sounds amazing, don't it? But when you add pets into the mix, suddenly the dream has a lot more variables and pets don't care about square footage. They don't care about minimalist design. They care about the space to run, spots to hide, or areas to play, and a place just to feel safe. And when you're living in a home that's smaller than some of the college dorms, the reality of sharing that space with a furry friend can be, you know, surprising. And I've seen a lot of videos online about tiny house living, and almost all of them make it look effortless. And people stroll through their 200 square foot home like it's nothing, showing off perfectly folded blankets and color coded shelves. But the moment you throw a dog or a cat into the tiny environment, life gets a lot more complicated. And suddenly, every square inch matters. The toys, they have to start piling up. Food bowls, they take over corners, and you're constantly stepping over sleeping pets. And noise that would normally be background, a barking dog or a meowing cat or the shuffle of paws on the floor suddenly feels amplified. And the small issues like a knocked over water bowl or a missing toy can feel like a major problem when space is just limited. And one of the first things to consider is whether your pet is even suited for tiny living. Small dogs are often the easiest, breeds that don't require a ton of exercise or that are naturally calm tend to adapt well to tiny spaces. But bigger dogs, for instance, have high energy, or like a high energy dog, those require careful planning. Daily walks aren't optional, they're essential. Even a medium sized dog can get stir crazy. If they're cooped up all day in a tiny house, that lack of space for running or playing can quickly become stressful for both the pet and the human. Cats, on the other hand, though, they're another one. Are surprisingly they very adaptable. They love vertical spaces, hiding spots, and perches where they can observe without being underfoot. Multi-level shelves, lofts, or window perches can make a tiny space feels huge to a cat. But litter boxes in a small space. That's a challenge. Odor control and placement are key, and daily cleaning isn't negotiable if you want to keep the house livable. Beyond choosing the right pet, layout and design becomes a critical. For dogs, you want open spaces and accessible exits for play and bathroom breaks. Beds, crates, or designed sleeping designated sleeping areas in corners help them feel secure. Cats, they benefits from the shelves, the wall mounted perches, and safe hideaways to retreat when they need alone time. But it can get even worse with a multi-pet household. It requires zones, a place to eat, sleep, and play separately. Otherwise, you risk stress and conflicts between the pets. Storage solutions are another way, just as important. Every toy, every food bag, every grooming tool needs a home. Vertical shelves, underbed storage, and hidden compartments in furniture can make a huge difference in keeping the space, organized and livable. And rotating toys and supplies, it's surprisingly effective strategy as well. Keeping some out of the sight reduces the clutter and keeps pets engaged when toys are brought back out as well. It's a fresh mixture of things. Exercise and enrichment are another big factor for pets. A tiny house alone doesn't provide enough room for pets to expand their energy. The dogs need daily walks and indoor activities like fetch in hallways or a tug of war or an interactive toy or a puzzle feeders can keep them mentally stimulated. Cats, they need the vertical spaces to climb and jump and to interact and play as well. I mean, like wanted toys or laser pointers keeps them healthy and engaged. Every pet that are naturally calm benefits from a structured routine. Without it, boredom can lead to behavioral issues, and in small spaces, make those issues even more noticeable. Noise is something people rarely think about before moving into a tiny house with pets as well. Small spaces, they magnify sound. Barking echoes, meowing carries, and even the shuffle of paws can seem louder than it really is. Rugs and padding or even white noise machines can help, but you'll need patience and often training to keep things under control. And if your tiny house is on wheels, mobility adds a new layer of complexity. Pets, they need a safely secured during transit. During transit, are they going to be able to ride up in the car with you? If you have a lot of pets, it's going to be very hard if you have kids and family. Motion sickness is a real concern for some animals, and frequent, relocation can be stressful. If they're not acclimated properly, short trial drives can help pets adjust gradually. In daily life in a tiny house with pets requires it requires feeding schedules. Bottom line, be consistent. Exercise and play needs to be planned. Sleeping arrangements should allow for pets to feel secure without crowding the humans. I don't want a bunch of dogs on me. You may enjoy that. No judge. No judge. But cleaning it becomes a daily task, and not an occasional chore, because in a small space, messes and odors accumulate very quickly. And then there's the financial aspect. Pets aren't free, and their costs become significant when combined with tiny house living. Beds, crates, litter boxes, cages, toys, and pet proofing supplies all add up very quickly. The food, vet care, grooming, and insurance are an ongoing costs that have to account for in in your tiny budget. Even if you have money on housing, pets aren't cheap. Despite all of the challenges, they are real benefits to tiny house living with pets, though, okay? For one, pets keep you grounded. They establish routines and encourage activity. And they also provide companionship that can be especially valuable in a smaller, isolated home. Living tiny with pets often encourages a simpler, more intentional life. With less space, you're forced to declutter and prioritize what really matters, and which benefits both humans and animals. And many people find that their bond with their pet grows stronger in a tiny home because they spend more intentional time together. And there are, of course, common problems that come on. Multi pet households, we've already talked about, need careful planning to prevent fights and stress. Layout mistakes like placing a litter box in the middle of a main living area. It creates friction and unpleasantness. Seasonal issues like, keeping pets warm in the winter or cool in the summer are more critical in tiny homes because the space heats and cools differently than larger homes. But solutions exist, and creating clear pet zones, using vertical space, providing outdoor access of decks, or maintaining routines and decluttering regularly are all strategies that make tiny living with pets fully manageable. Real life examples show that it can be done successfully. And one single person I know has a very large dog in a 250 square foot tiny house, and she's off grid, and she daily walks and under bed storage for toys, and it makes it work. Through high energy days, still they require extra outdoor time. A couple living in a 300 square foot tiny house on land has two cats and vertical shelves plus loft and nooks keep both animals happy. Litter boxes are hidden in enclosed cabinets, which keeps the living space clean and odor free. Even families with rabbits or fish have found ways to make it work by providing outdoor time for the rabbits and carefully organizing tanks and cages inside. The common thread is that success requires planning, creativity, and flexibility. And the honest truth is that tiny living with pets can absolutely work, but it isn't effortless. It takes thought, intentional design, and a lot of compromise. Pets need enrichment, space, and routine. Humans need patience, okay, planning and a willingness to adapt. And the payoff, it can be significant. Though many who live with pets report closer bonds, a more structured daily routine, and a simpler, more intentional lifestyle. And pets thrive when their needs are considered thoughtfully. And humans often discover that their connection with their furry companions deepens in a tiny environment. So if you're considering, tiny living with pets, there are a few tips that will make life easier. Okay. Create dedicated zones for feeding, sleeping, and playing, and maximize your vertical space with shelves and perches. Provide consistent outdoor access, whether it's a deck or a fenced in yard or regular walks. Establish routines for feeding, exercise, and cleaning. Declutter constantly to make the space, usable for both humans and pets. And invest in a storage solution that hides the toys, the food, and supplies to maintain a clean and organized living area. And noise control is another one. Proper ventilation and pet proofing are also key factors for keeping the space just livable. Ultimately, living tiny with pets isn't a magic solution or a lifestyle hack that works for everyone. It's a choice that comes with unique challenges and rewards as well. Pets can flourish in a small space when their physical, mental, and emotional needs are met. Humans can enjoy a simplified lifestyle that prioritizes what's truly important. But success requires preparation, compromise, and a willingness to think creatively about space and routines. So, can you live with pets? Absolutely. Is it easy? Not always. And the good news is that with the right planning, design, and commitment, tiny living can provide a safe, happy, fulfilling environment for both you and your pet. The space is smaller, yes, but the bond you form and the life you create can be enormous. And that's the honest truth about living tiny with pets. If you're thinking about, taking the leap, start by trialing a tiny space with your pet, decluttering your belongings and designing for both human and animal needs with the right mindset. Tiny living with pets can be a rewarding adventure, one that teaches patience and creativity and values of intentional living. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Stay tiny.